Bad things happen to good people. And when that happens, sometimes our spiritual teachings can be used as a stick to somewhat hit other people with it or ourselves and go, what was in your consciousness? And sometimes it's like, you must have attracted this. So let's use something recent. The question came up from one of my students recently about Nipsey. As we know, Nipsey was a successful rapper. He gave back to his community. He did great things. He was an incredible businessman. He was constantly about building up his community, lifting them up, inspiring them, and he rose above the gang environment. So here's a successful man with a huge heart, and he got murdered. So did he attract that? What do you say about bad things can happen to good people?
So when things like that happen, the challenge is that we don't live just in our own bubble of our own lives. Right? We live in race consciousness, and it's not just, Ernest Holmes uses the term race consciousness. He means human race, right? Like Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenetic field, the universal subjective subconscious mind. And there are all kinds of beliefs and ideas that are just considered the way it is, and we live in that. And so you might not have had anything to do with what was in his consciousness. It might have everything to do with what was in the consciousness of the person who decided to murder him, to shoot him. I mean, think about, what was in the consciousness of Gandhi to be shot. And there, sometimes when the light is so bright, what's stirred up is what's in the shadow, what's in race consciousness, what's in the collective unconscious. And so I think that it is unfortunate when we feel like that we have to be somebody else's thought police. It's, that's really not up to us, none of our business, none of our damn business what somebody else is thinking or whether or not they're thinking something. Our job is to be compassionate for other people. We apply the law to ourselves, not to somebody else. And it's challenging. It's challenging when good things happen when bad things happen to good people, when bad things happen to us, and rather than always focusing on the assumption that, I have some horrible negative belief or somehow I've attracted this thing. I love what Kathy Ann Lewis, I learned this years ago from Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis. She says, create, promote, or allow. We create, promote, or allow things. So yes, actually we create things. We can have a false belief that we can never be more prosperous or that life is hard, and we are actually creating that. On the other hand, we promote things when we buy into some overarching ideas that are running around. So the best example is, it's the flu season. Well, you better be careful, it's the flu season. Or, it's spring, of course everybody's going to get allergies, right? I'm actually promoting an idea that is held in general, and I'm agreeing with it. I'm not really paying attention to that I'm agreeing with it. I'm just sort of agreeing with it. So, gang violence happens and people are martyred and people are shot and, violence is just a fact of life. I mean, when we say those kinds of things, we're simply promoting the general atmosphere. And then sometimes we're not actually paying attention. And when we are simply allowing life to happen, we are then subject to what Thomas Troward calls the law of averages. So, and this is basically statistics. I mean, X number of people are going to have a traffic accident, and if I'm not creating protection as I'm driving, knowing that I'm, safely go every time I get in my car. And if I'm not really paying attention to that, and I have a little bit of an ear tuned towards, traffic's bad in Dallas, and then I'm just not paying attention, and I'm just unconscious, I can be one of those statistics. I just allowed myself, and we all contribute to the idea that, well, this is just the way it is. And so, you know, you can think about it in terms of people getting cancer. When somebody, you know, very few people I know of had a specific fear or thought, well, oh my God, I'm going to get cancer. I would say 90% of the people who get cancer do not have that thought. And I would say 75% of the people who get cancer don't think anything about cancer at all. And it's just becomes a statistic. X number of women are going to get breast cancer. X number of men are going to get prostate cancer. And without really using our spiritual tools to raise ourselves out of statistics, out of the law of averages, we're subject to all of that. That's just what's in the field that we live in. And, you know, and so when something like that happens, there's a field that's playing out in, you know, in some way. And it's not our job to walk around and say, well, how did you create that? I mean, we're not the thought police. It's none of our business what somebody is or isn't doing in their own consciousness. We have to pay attention to our consciousness and to recognize that, it's really love and compassion that we give to somebody else, not how did you create that? I mean, that's just nonsense.
Thank you, Petra. That is really helpful.